All that in the next hour, and with us for the duration, the Conservative MP, Heidi and the Labour MP and prominent Brexiteer Gisela Stuart, who this morning launched a new pressure group, Change Britain, campaigning to make Brexit a success. The group has notable supporters, including the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, no less.
But she set the structures. But the thing is, we now need to bring Leavers and Remainers together and say, how do we work in the best interest of the country? And that's going to be our challenge.
But is it appropriate for Boris Johnson as Foreign Secretary to be part of it?
Well, Boris is our patron. I mean, I'm he's championing us. I'm chairing it. The two key patrons are Robert Salisbury and Maurice Glassman. So you have the political spectrum, and you have got amongst the supporters Leavers and Remainers.
Right, Leavers and Remainers. I'd like to know who the Remainers are. Are you going to reach out to someone like Heidi Allen? Would you join, Heidi?
No, I wouldn't. Nothing personal.
I mean, you were a Remainer. Why not?
Because I think, and I understand, it's so emotive on both sides, but we've got to give the Prime Minister a chance. I really do. That's her job. And with the greatest respect, and, this is a great thing about democracy, we've learned that. Everybody's entitled to form their own groups and opinions. But I really do think it's time for the Prime Minister. She set up the departments. She was out and about through the summer meeting European leaders. She is getting on with it. And for me, I don't feel we need that group yet, I suppose.
Right, because you don't think, or it looks as if the group doesn't trust the government to do what they've said they'll do.
I don't know if it's about trust. I think my sense is, and Gisela will know this better than I, my sense is it's about just keeping the pressure on so that it never relents and that Brexit is what we achieve. But I don't believe for a minute that Theresa will go back on that. I think she's very determined. So again, for me, if you feel that you need to do it, then fine. But for me, I feel it's a little too early to put that pressure on.
So which Remainers have you got on board?
Well, I mean, key one was Nick Bowles amongst the MPs. And
that's one.
Yeah, but, we literally just started this. And I think, the other thing which I think is important, I'm probably one of the last people who have done negotiations across Whitehall with 27 European states when we were working on the European Constitution. And what I learned at that stage was that even when you've got a clear political direction, you do need a platform where you can thrash out ideas. And government, you always expect them to come out with the perfectly formed policies. And currently they're saying, we're working on this behind the scenes. We're saying we can help you to work on those policies in the public.
Do you really think that's realistically going to happen, particularly when leaders of the Vote Leave campaign, yourself obviously included, have been asked to apologise for promising there would be £350 million of extra money for the NHS, and you've been asked to apologise by Labour colleagues, Ian Austin, Emma Reynolds and Pat McFadden. Will you apologise for that?
Well, to which I say that unless and until we've actually leave the European Union, there's nothing of this we can do. And we said that's the money we spend on the NHS, on Brussels, we should fund the NHS. And I said, if it were my priority, I would spend it on the NHS.
Right. Is it in your manifesto in this group?
Well, this is why this isn't a kind of pressure group or manifesto. You
have got a manifesto, though, for it, haven't you?
We have the key principles of what we thought the people were looking for when they voted to leave, which were these breaks of links between people and trade, links of supremacy of EU law, you take control of your taxes and your borders.
But the NHS pledge was at the heart of your message, wasn't it? It's a bit surprising it's not there.
No, the NHS was the example of that if you're spending that amount of money and you haven't got control on what to do with it, I would spend it on the NHS. It was about taking control of your spending decisions.
Do you think Gisela is right to the extent that the campaign is over and there were many arguments about pledges and claims that were made by both sides, whether it was the punishment budget or money being pledged to the NHS? Do you think we need to move on from that?
I do. I think the campaign is over and people have come away very, very wounded on both sides. People have been tarred with a horrid brush on the Leave side that's not, it's not deserved. I suppose my word of caution on this whole project or lobby group, whatever we're calling it, is those wounds I don't feel have healed yet. And this feels like whipping it up again before the Prime Minister's had chance to harmonise the country, which, and I think she's very, very capable of doing that, and I'd be wary for that reason.
Right, so you actually think it's going to fuel division rather than bring people together, which is what Gisela is trying to do?
Potentially that would be my worry. I think the Prime Minister is the figurehead, the leader of the country, very calming, very measured. She is the one to take us through this and bring those, wounds and those two sides back together again, and I just worry that this might whip it up.
And I think you make a very fair point. What I would add to that is that, of course, we've had large sections of what Labour core voters who voted to leave, and they need their say and their representation. So you're right to put that challenge to us, that we have to make sure we focus on that healing process, because it has to be a national decision. It was a national decision to leave, and now the implementation must represent the interests of the whole country.
All right, you'll come back and tell us how it's going in terms of recruiting Remainers.
We were able to preserve them in the 60s and 70s when this culture war took place.
Are you saying then that free schools and academies, which were championed by the previous government, have been a failure?
No, I don't think that at all.
So why not put the resources into those?
Well, we are going to continue to put resources. There's not a sense of having an entire change of direction. And my own view is we probably are talking about a relatively small number of new grammar schools being founded. But what we want to give are the power, obviously, for those who are in the existing grammar school areas who desperately want to have more places, partly because of increased population, to be able to do so.
Heidi Allen, are you going to be supporting this?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm looking forward to hearing Justine's statement this afternoon. My gut instinct says, why not? You know, if you're bright, we should be encouraging, you know, the best children to learn as swiftly as you can. And I'm glad to hear about the technical college side of things, because my worst fear with all of this is it's those that are left behind. In my own very, very high-tech, high-science, high-brain constituency of South Cambridgeshire, we don't have enough people learning to do the other jobs. And that's my fear, that we'll end up with these grammar schools and everybody else falling by the wayside, and that absolutely mustn't happen.
But that was the criticism of them in the first place, that there was a binary choice. So why do you think Theresa May thinks this is the answer? Why not put the effort and the resources into building those technical colleges, which have been championed to some extent by former Conservative, who's still a Conservative, but former politician Kenneth Baker?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping, as you've suggested, Mark, that we might hear more later on. You're right, I've spoken at length with Kenneth Baker. I like his model very much about technical colleges.
In a sense, what he's doing actually is saying that the one gap from the Rab Butler reforms in the 1940s was that actually that was part of the focus. It was the tripartite system.
I completely agree with you, and to be honest, I can't wait to get those MPs actually having gone back to their constituencies, having seen sense, seen the strength of feeling amongst their own membership, to actually come back on board and take that opposition to the government, because their constituents deserve it more than anyone else.
Heidi, do you think it was actually Labour MPs and Jeremy Corbyn who got those U-turns out of the government, or was it down to Tory MPs?
Well, I'm not a natural gloater, but I did find myself going, Pip, tax credits. I think I was a little bit involved in that. I really like Jeremy as a human being. He is most definitely showing a different way to behave. You know, and I came into politics determined not to behave in the old-fashioned ways of he said, she said, what you did, what I did, because I'm not interested in that. But as you say, he has to be competent, and I fear he is massively out of his depth in a party, political and parliamentarian way. He is not leading his party, and he needs to do that. It's the voters that matter, not just the MPs, not just the members. I think Francis O'Grady said that. And without the voters, you are completely powerless. You're just a soapbox.
And obviously that is backed up by the polls. I mean, the polls are dramatic in terms of support for Labour. I mean, they're 11 points behind. I mean, Heidi Allen, do you agree also with the point made in the film that if there's no wage premium for going to university, what's the point?
Well, I suppose it depends what profession, what career you want to ultimately go into. Perhaps if you're interested in an academic career, then maybe earning isn't what it's all about. But I do agree, I think when I went to university, I was the first in my family to go, and that was kind of the conversation you'd have with your peers. Anybody in your family gone yet? And it swung the other way, that you're a nobody, you're a nothing if you don't go to university. And we've been pushing kids into degrees that are, dare I say, worthless, from universities with not rigorous academic standards, and they come out disappointed, and it has to change, and the apprenticeships are part of that.
Right, you say it has to change, and I see if there was more choice to do other things, it could change. But are you saying you want to go back to the sort of elitist type, when very few people, apart from middle-class kids, went to university?
Not at all, but funnily enough, I won a slot in the private members' bill last year, the first time as a new MP, and honestly, I didn't really know what to do with it. But kind people
you do now.
Kind lobbyists helped me. And I tried to get a private members' bill through about transparency on fees, actually, because it is a consumer thing. You are potentially taking on debt, and I want to know what I'm getting for my money. So let's help youngsters understand how many lectures, what are my job prospects, what am I going to earn, and then people might actually start to choose a different path.
Do you think it was wrong, Gisela Stewart, for Labour?
I really do. It really upsets me that every time I come on here, you do another pub quiz with me, because you do not do it with anybody else, and I do think that it's patronising.
Let me address it, Emily Thorne. It's not, because you are the shadow foreign secretary.
Yeah, right.
And this was about the French foreign minister, Jean-Marc Ayrault.
Anyway, we haven't got time for a pub quiz, you'll be pleased to know. Gisela, was it sexist?
well, it was just good banter, but you should never attack the presenter. So, whatever you tell me, I say yes to you, okay?
Do you know, I'm delighted to hear that. I want that in writing in a gold plaque put up on the wall for everyday students. Was it sexist, yes or no?
Absolutely not. If you don't know the answer, you've been caught out. Just accept it and blush.
All right, there's almost time to ask you, but I won't. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you to all of our guests, and particularly to you two, of course, for being our guests of the day. And the one